What's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the current state of Warcraft logs, and I guess just, well, for Sanctum of Domination and Warlock representation, specs, and really how things have actually, played out over the course of the first 2.5-3 days of Sanctum actually being live. Now, today's video was actually supposed to be the first 7 bosses on Heroic, but after pulling the VOD off of Twitch, I realized the audio is scuffed past the first 3 bosses. So I'm sorry, but the VODs are on Twitch if you want. This is not a shameless kind of thing here. I'm not going to upload a video with audio being scuffed. So we'll see where that goes. I'll try and figure it out. But at this point, I also wanted to make this video too, so we'll get into this. Now, we put a video out about 5 days ago talking about Destro Demo Aff in the raid and what bosses we think they might end up being played on. And for the most part, I think a lot of the bosses have ended up being what we said they would be. KT has spoilers ahead and deep and fixed for Shadowburn, for Wrath of Consumption, and those things. But there is a bit more demonology representation in the raid than we initially thought. But this is Heroic and not Mythic. So I want to give you a breakdown of each boss briefly, looking at Warcraft logs and give my thoughts on it, and then eventually tell you, I guess, how I feel Mythic's going to end up playing out. With that being said, off the bat, first of all, we know that Heroic tuning normally comes, the week of Heroic, right? I hope you guys are ready to play Affliction, because these are the current rankings for classes in Sanctum. I hope you guys are hoping this is oh cool. I don't even know what to say. I hope you guys enjoy Aff. Aff buffs are coming. Every boss and Aff boss. Memes aside, this is very bad, but about what we expected. Demo's middle of the pack, Destro's middle of the pack too. I do feel Destro is better than this, and so is Demonology, but there's a lot of representation from rogues and other classes that might end up getting tuned a bit towards the, I guess, higher end of the spectrum here. So with the funeral march of Aff taking place now and everything else, let's get into the actual, I guess, breakdown for each boss. I know my camera's in the way. I'll try and move it around a bit and go from there. So as far as the Terror Group is concerned, this is like overall classes. Every spec in the game, this is the overall top 10 breakdown for each class. You've got Shadow Priest, Ellie Shaman, and Frost Mage. More or less what you expected. I mean, I sort of thought there'd be a little more Shadow Priest representation here, because it's pure patchwork and everything, but this is also day 2.5. Things will end up changing over the course of this week. A relatively even breakdown here, I guess, give or take. Eye of the Jailer, a lot of Destro cleave here, but this is just what's expected. It's a great 2-target Destro fight, which is, what we were talking about most of the time. Moving on to the 9, not a whole lot of Destro representation here, and I think a lot of that is due to the fact that the first phase is 2-target and 3-target, great Destro cleave. But the second part is single target based, so you're not getting as much value in the, I guess, more relevant part of the fight with Destro as, you are in the first half. I'm not saying it's bad there, but it's just sort of what we talked about as well. Looking at Remnant here, there is an actual demo parse. Now, I assume this would be both a demo and a Destro fight. We talked about this being potentially one of the patchwork, bosses in disguise for the tier, and it sort of does appear to be that way. You've got a Shadow Priest, a Demonology Lock, an Arcane Mage, even a Feral Druid, and there's that. So if you don't need cleave on the actual orbs, Demo does indeed appear to be a decent choice here, but we'll look more in depth for just Warlocks in a minute. And yes, okay, some people got 7 buffs, some people got 2. It is what it is. Buffs are part of the game. I don't like them either, but it is what it is. We have to live with it. Soul Render, once again, I didn't think was an amazing Warlock boss. It's fine, and this fight will be, I think Destro will be more relevant on this boss when it comes to Mythic than it is Heroic, because on Mythic you have a larger priority add that spawns, has to be burst down a bit faster than the others. On Heroic they just sort of spawn, you just sort of kill them and go back to dealing with the boss. So I didn't really expect a whole lot of higher Warlock representation here, more melee based, which is what we see. Painsmith, Demo Lock, Shadow Priest, Demo Lock, Feral Druid, Arcane Mage. Once again, similar to Mythic, I think we're going to end up seeing more Destro play here, depending on how tightly tuned the actual rolling spike balls are. If you need an extra amount of burst damage on them, Destro can probably bring more of that with Havoc on the boss compared to what Demonology can bring. But on Heroic, Demo's been more than fine. I played Demo on this as well, albeit we got a million mechanics on us, but I played Demo on this as well, and it felt fine. The Tyrant timings are very tight, but we'll get to that in a little while. Guardian, Demonology Locks, a couple Shadow Priests. I do expect a bunch of Demo, Shadow, and a couple Rep Hellies in here, give or take a bit. It's just a good single target fight. That's what Demo's good at. We've been saying for a while. Nobody wants to believe me, but that's fine. Demo's good at single target. It's a better PI target than a Shadow Priest. Nobody wants to believe me. I said this tier, you'll see, and here we are. But either way, a very good Demo fight, single target base. Once again, Warlock with Dark Pact is very, very strong here because you have the huge shield for every tank slam or bomb, whatever's going out. It's very, very strong in this setting. Faith Scribe, I'm a little surprised to not see more Destro locks here, but not a lot of guilds have actually killed this boss on Heroic. Some have, but public logs, private logs. I'm a bit surprised we don't see more Destro locks here. There's some. Then again, you can get a lot of cleave as far as like Frost is concerned, and there's that Ilya Shaman cleave as well. So either way, not a bad Destro boss. I'm surprised not seeing as many in the top 10 overall here. KT is going to be a pretty crazy mix. All three specs here, a little more towards Destro and Af, have a lot of relevancy in play, but they have fixed KT. You can indeed get Shadowburn cleave. You can indeed get Wrath and Consumption value as well. Imagine getting six PIs on Prog. Fun. It's pretty strong. But overall, like, Warlock representation in the raids actually pretty decent. We're a pretty solid mix here on Guardian, a little bit on KT. You've got some Painsmith mix, I guess, relevancy, and as far as Remnant's concerned, sure, and Terragru. Not bad overall. There are no public logs of Sylvanas on Heroic yet. But moving on to just Warlock logs, All-Stars here being mostly Destro, and like we thought, Destro is going to be better this tier than Demonology, I feel, in a progression setting. Demo's still fine and better when it comes to single target bosses, but if you're only playing one spec this tier and don't want to min-max, I still feel that Destruction is the best choice, and I don't think it's very close. So when it comes to the Terragru, you've got a mix of Destro and Demo. This is just the Warlock specific parses here. Now, I'm going to be honest, this might be due to certain anima powers working better, interacting more with Destro compared to Demo. I'm honestly not 100%, and in the nicest way possible, I don't really care because this boss is extremely easy in a good way. It's a great boss, and if you're going to work a boss, if you're going to work anima powers into a boss, the Terragru is an example of what it's a good boss. They did very well with this boss. It's fun, it's engaging, it's not a part of All-Stars, which it shouldn't be, but with it being the first boss in the raid tier, it's a bit of a gimmicky boss. Fun, enjoyable. I like it overall. I still think Demo's better in a single target, but there could be some traits here that are stacking. We'll see where it goes. One thing to note here, not a whole lot of Eradication we've seen. Now, I wanted to play Eradication a little bit last night. Just sort of forgot about it on the 1 or 2 bosses that I wanted to, but we ended up playing Demo on those instead anyways, mainly because it's Heroic, and I felt Demo had a bit of a better damage profile for the Heroic version of the fight. But we've seen some, however, not as much Eradication play as I expected. There's one here, some Dreadlash play on Demonology, a lot of Carnivorous play as well, which we'll get to in a minute here. But TLDR, a bit more Destro on the Terragru than I expected. Still not in a terrible spot overall. Eye of the Jailer, big cleave fight, Destro, cleave both intermissions, Dreamweaver, Duplicitous, Ashen, you've got Soul Eater here. You just crank. The fight's good. I will say, if you cannot get cleave, I'm surprised there's no Duplicitous here for what it's worth. If you cannot get cleave with Soul Eater, there might be a world where Combusting Engine is maybe a little better, even just following your normal rotation and not optimizing around it, just due to the fact that, well, you're not getting big Soul Eater cleave. But I don't know. It's very hard to sim that and replicate that. Either way, big Destro lock fight, crazy amount of cleave. Destro's a very strong option on this fight, probably the best one. I don't know why you played Shadowburn here. There really isn't any relevancy as far as this is concerned with really ads dying. Maybe for mobility, but there's not a whole lot of movement on this fight, I don't think. Either way, what we expected on Eye, cranking, Cinders, good to go. The 9, I did not expect this much Demonology play on this fight. There's a few Destro parses here, give or take. The highest overall parse on this fight in general for the 9 is 8.4k DPS. The highest Demo parse, 8k. So we're about 400 DPS off the highest parse, but this is the highest parse like in the world as far as this is concerned right now on Mythic. So you're really not that far off technically. Now, Demo might not be as strong in phase 1 when it comes to the permanent 2-target cleave that Destro can get, but to a similar extent, we're playing Cinders here, right? Phase 1 is permanent 2-target. Technically, Madness would be a better option there, but phase 2 is pure single target, which means Madness is nowhere near as good as Cinders, and Demo gains a lot of value. And seeing as how phase 2 is probably about 70% of the fight, 65% duration-wise, Demonology is putting up decent numbers here. There's a lot of PIs, they're all playing Wilfrids, a decent bit of Carnivorous over Fel Commando, which is surprising even with Demonic Strength. I will say, I played it last night myself over Fel Commando even with DS as a talent, and was relatively impressed. Also, you can get a higher Carnivorous Conduit from Terragru versus getting Fel Commando later on, but I'm surprised here I want to see how Mythic shakes up. I still feel like Destro is a bit more relevant here as far as like prog is concerned, but I'm surprised to see Demonology being this strong, even in overall DPS. But then again, due to both bosses being stacked in phase 1 the majority of the fight, you can get a good bit of cleave. Demonic Strength cleave, Hand of Gul'dan cleave, Implosion cleave, even Soul Rot cleave. You can get a lot of it, and it's actually relevant. Grimoire Felguard cleave, Fellstorm cleave. So this is not a bad setting to be at, having 2 specs that are actually relevant on this fight, as far as I'm concerned at least. Moving on to Remnant, Demo Destro mix here. This is what I expected more or less. This is sort of a patchwork fight in disguise. The orbs need to die, but they die really fast anyways. And if you want to be Demo, you can implode them. If you're Destro, you can havoc them down. But outside of the orbs being active for a small portion of the fight, this is pretty much a single target fight. The damage in the raid amps up the longer the fight goes when you break armor off the boss. More of a DPS check, more of an HPS check. Demonology very well might get the nod in Mythic over this, or over Destruction, simply due to that. If the orbs don't need an insane amount of burst, which I don't think they really will, I think Demonology might end up getting the nod here. Playing Nia, Born of Blood, Tyrant Soul, and Carnivorous Stalkers. Once again here, actually playing Dreadlash, but you have it even Carnivorous with Demonic Strength here. So not bad overall. Personally, for me, Dreadlash is simming less than Demonic Strength in pure single target, but I mean, there are certain places where Dreadlash is relevant if you're getting cleave on 2 targets, and I think for certain people it's actually simming higher than Demonic Strength. It's certainly more consistent. DS is a 1-minute cooldown, so if the fight is ending, let's say at the 440 mark, and your DS is coming off cooldown in 10 seconds, you're probably not getting as much value out of that as you would Dreadlash if they're within, you know, 20, 30-ish DPS of each other in sims. So that's worth keeping in mind. But as far as Remnant's concerned, the highest overall DPS on Remnant is literally a Demonology lock at 8.1k DPS. There's a second one here at 7.6k. It's actually not that bad. So I'm glad that we sort of hit the nail on the head, I guess, with this, or at least picked up on Demonology being decent on this fight. We'll see where it goes. Soul Render, a mix of Destro and Demo. I'm surprised there's not a bit more Reign of Chaos play here, just because this fight is weird with ads and a bit of padding. It sort of feels like this fight missed the mark a little bit on Heroic. I don't want to say it's undertuned, but it just feels like it could be, I don't know. It feels like there's one element of it missing, and I'm really not sure what it is. You sort of just go in there and pull the boss, and he sort of just dies. You kill the ads when they spawn, they're irrelevant mostly, and the boss just falls over. Just don't get hit by the dance. A mix of Demo, a mix of Destro. Going through the overall log once again, well, it's a melee pad fest. But with that being said, Destro is not a bad choice, neither is Demo. Demo is going to bring you much more of a single target damage profile. On our kill last night, when you went to add damage, this is not our kill, this is just a random pull here. When you went to add damage, the Demonology Warlock, me, wasn't incredibly high on them. We had a decent bit of damage, but it wasn't like you were up here with the melee. We were around here, give or take. But if you went to single target boss damage, this is what it looked like last night. The Demonology Lock, I played it, was 1,000 DPS ahead of the next highest person in single target. So Demo can bring a very relevant profile to this fight. The big thing is that on Mythic, though, there's another ad that spawns at the same duration with the other ads that needs to be killed. It's a priority burst target, which Destro is very good at. So I think Demonology loses some relevancy on this fight when it comes to Mythic, but it still might end up being the choice. The big thing is you have to really force your tyrants out on the move. Like, you have to set them up on the move. I think the second or third one lines up with a dance, and the fourth one is sort of awkward as well. But as long as you can do that, you're in a pretty good spot, both playing Demo or Destro on this fight. Once again, Wilfred Cinders across the board. Yes, there are buffs, but that's just life, unfortunately. Painsmith, there's a lot of Demonology here. I think this is due to basically just being a patchwork single target fight. The orbs don't need Destro cleave on Heroic. I feel personally, if you need a Destro lock, if you need a lock to play Destro over Demo in this fight to kill orbs, your raid's not putting enough priority on the orbs. Destro will not get a whole havoc window on the orbs in Heroic, and Demonology just brings more to the fight, I feel, as far as mobility is concerned, a single target damage profile, and you can implode the orbs. You can now command your demons to swap to a different target and hit the orb. It's actually pretty solid. Similar to Mythic Soul Render. I do think Destro gains more value potentially in Mythic, depending on how the fight ends up being. The orbs might have a whole lot more health. You might need to kill them if that's the case, or blast them down more. And if that's the case, then Destro does gain value here. But this has been a pretty big demonology fight. We played it last night as demo as well. I enjoyed it a good bit. We had triple chains and I think one, maybe double traps on our kill. It was hectic. Our overall damage at the end was not very good, but you know what? We killed it in 9 pulls, which is pretty good for most heroic guilds, or heroic guilds, guilds on like their first initial heroic kill, from what I heard. This boss is probably the second hardest boss in the raid, from what I've heard. Overall damage in this fight also being pretty good as far as Demo is concerned. A few Shadow Priest, a Feral Druid, Arcane Mage, and there you go. Guardian, the first ones, overall damage, like for every class, Demo, Ret, Demo. It's a Demo fight. Big Demo fight, not much to it here. This is the Patchwork Sludge Fist boss of the tier. Big buffs, PIs coming in, which Demo is a very good PI target. I think you'll see a lot of Demo locks getting PI'd in progression on this fight. Zerabu coming in at the rank 1 here. Awkwardly enough with a heroic Kel'Thuzad trinket, which is the boss after Guardian. But yeah, so big Demo fight, playing Wilfred's here. Not much else to it. You slam your tyrants, you play Dark Pact. It's very, very good in this fight, exceptionally strong. There's not a whole lot of Burning Rush relevancy, pretty small area to move in, and Dark Pact is incredibly strong here. Ruby, Hymnal, basic single target build. It's just a really good Demo fight. Fate Scribe, Destro is a little bit of Demo. I think Destro is the better spec here. Your Kata timing, your Havoc timing is really, really solid on this fight. Whenever the tank ad spawn and whenever these smaller ads spawn out of the tank ad, you do have to pre-cast your Kata instead of like an Incinerate on pull, but it works really well if you get the timings down. I will say the highest Warlock overall DPS is 8.2k. The highest overall damage is 10k from a Windwalker Monk and LA Shaman. It's a lot of ad damage coming in for sure, but Lot can provide a lot of on-demand burst damage for the tank ad, as well as the actual boss. When the smaller ad spawn, you can go into a Kata, into a Rain of Fire. In the intermission, the 2 larger ads, big Havoc windows if you don't get the actual runic debuff to remove the runes around. It's a good fight for Destro locks, but it's not necessarily going to show in overall DPS. You see a mix of Dreamweaver here with Nia, more so towards Demonology, which is what we expect. 4 PIs here, hey, wanted to buy. Wilfred's base Goosenders here. It's mostly what we expected. Backdraft, reverse entropy. There is a potential for Shadowburn sniping here, but I don't think it's as relevant because the boss by itself is active a lot compared to ads being active every so often. Then again, you know, it's still a thing, much more relevant than on like the Terra Grew. Either way, a very solid Destro fight overall. Things get very interesting though when we move on to Kel'Thuzad. So we have seen the highest overall KT parse is by a Destro lock with 6 PIs. Wanted to buy. So we've seen a lot when it comes to Kel'Thuzad in the last 24 hours. We've seen a decent bit of Shadowburn Destro. We've seen some Reign of Chaos Destro. We've seen some Wilfred's Destro. We've seen 6 PIs. We've seen some Affliction with Wrath and Consumption, Writhe and Agony. We've even seen some Demonology playing Bioscourge Bombers with Wilfred's. We've seen a lot of Korain play here because there's ad spawning back to back to back to back. First Strike, Wild Hunt Tactics, very strong here. TLDR, all 3 Warlock specs in this fight are good. Destro and Aff are better than Demonology, I feel personally. Shadowburn is very strong here. They did indeed fix KT. All of the ads you can shard snipe with Shadowburn, or all, I guess to a similar extent, all the ads give Wrath and Consumption value with Affliction. You've got options. We're pulling KT tonight. I'm really not sure I'm going to play. I'm leaning more towards Reign of Chaos Dark Soul play with Wilfred's. I talked about this build in PTR testing, that it might actually be relevant because you have your Infernal every 2-ish minutes when the ads are spawning, when they're relevant, when you have the large damage burst windows. And while it might not be as consistent as Cinders necessarily, it brings a lot of value on a fight like this. At the same time, Wrath of Consumption, Affliction, you get a lot of value out of this as well. Pulling this up here, it might seem like this is a pretty big pad spec, but look at the Afflock damage. 8.4k, and to be fair, okay, oh wait, 0 buffs. Look at that. Look at overall boss damage. Oh, it might be a lot of ad damage. Look at overall boss damage. Not too bad. Look at the other Afflocks here that played Wrath of Consumption with Writhe and Agony. Look at this one, for example. Look at the boss damage. This is boss damage. It can crank a serious amount of damage on the boss, as well as a pretty serious amount of damage on the actual adds. Look at the actual uptime as well on Wrath Consumption. You're looking at, honestly, you're looking at an 80% plus uptime. He had 82%. Look at this 5 stack you roll here. You leave your locks outside of Phylactery for the adds in phase 2, and you can roll Wrath almost like the entire fight. It's really, really strong. It drops at the end here for him. I believe this person maintained it towards the very end of the fight as well. It's really, really, really strong. But the question is, how is it going to shake up long term? Are you going to have this permanent 5 stack in Heroic later on? Has a look on Mythic, but Aff looks good. Destro looks good. You've got Shadowburn play. I think the play probably is Shadowburn here. Roaring and Rain is sort of close. Definitely Dark Soul. And the Wilfred Cinder's debate is still up in the air. I'm not getting 6 PIs. I'm not getting 1 as far as my progress is concerned. But either way, there's a lot of relevancy on this fight for Warlock. This is a good lock fight. It's a control fight. You want ads to die at a certain time. You want to control ads, control the fights, push the boss, and then go. That is what Destro was very good at doing. To a similar extent, insane Wrath Consumption value with Affliction. There are no public logs of Sylvanas being killed on Heroic. Normal, however, well, there's some lock representation. Destro. Not a crazy amount, but there is some. I do feel overall this is going to be like a Destro fight. Depending on the final phase, I could see a bit of demo relevancy. There's not really going to be a whole lot of Aff, I don't think, unless they buff Aff, which once again, hey, Aff's getting buffed. The question is just by how much. Destro looks really good in this fight as far as like ad control is concerned as well. Phase 2, there's a lot of ads that are relevant, need to be cleaved down. There is some Shadowburn relevancy in phase 2, in phase 1 with arrows, but I'm not sure how much it's actually needed. I think that Entropy might end up being your better option. Playing Corraine here, Havoc fight, 7 PIs, 1 fairy. Hey, dude, Squid, hook me up, man. But either way, Destro looks good here. This fight is incredibly long, but the good thing is Destro will bring a consistent damage profile in phase 1, in phase 2, and in phase 3. It might not be the flashiest spec overall damage wise. This damage is very low, but I mean the overall damage on this fight in general is very low because it's a 13-14 minute fight with intermissions. Destro is fine on Sylvanas, good prog, I guess spec on the fight. Lock looks good there in general as well. We'll see where it goes after class tuning this week, because once again, Aff, I would venture to guess that Affliction's probably getting buffed. The question is just how much, because they nerfed Malignancy, they nerfed Rapture, they nerfed Withering Bolt, they buff dot damage. What do you buff? Do you undo the Malignancy nerf? Do you buff Rapture again? I don't know at this point. But summarizing the video, TLDR, Lock is good in Sanctum. Some fights might not be as flashy as others when you don't have Stormkeeper, Chain Lightning Cleave, or insane Windwalker Cleave on certain fights. In a progression setting, Warlock is very, very solid this tier as far as relevant DPS, relevant damage on what you bring to each fight. We'll see how it translates in Mythic, but overall, I think Lock is, outside of Shadow Priest and maybe like a couple of fights here and there, Boomkin or Mage, one of, if not the best spec as far as range DPS is concerned in Sanctum. So yeah, thanks for watching, dudes. I got a lot of questions over the last 48 hours or so, what specs are looking good in Sanctum and how things have shaken out, which thankfully have pretty much aligned with most everything we talked about in the video leading up to it. There is a bit more demonology play than expected, but I think that's, well, probably to be expected on Heroic with some of the bosses not having all of their, I guess, true mythic mechanics in. Some fights have more adds that are relevant. Destro Cleave. Some fights are going to be just different in general. Destro's probably a little better on those fights, like Painsmith, like Soul Render. Potentially, there's Wool. We'll see where it all goes. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. I'll be sure to get back to you, or swing by stream anytime, and feel free to ask as well. We are indeed pulling Heroic KT, killing Fate Scribe, and then doing our normal clear tonight, and then probably heading back in for Sylvanas either this evening or Sunday, depending on whenever that happens. Heads up, once again, I will be in Texas starting the 10th, or at least the 11th on Sunday, flying out for the Complexity Race to World first. So if I will have videos coming out in that time frame, but things might be a bit, I don't want to say slower than usual. I've got a lot going on with the Race to World first, but I'm still going to try and get boss kills up, stream whenever I can, and go from there. So thank you for the support and the understanding. Hopefully Limit can take down again. But all that being said, if you guys are interested in seeing more WoW content and want to support the channel, be sure to smash the subscribe button below and hit the like button as well. Thank you so much, dudes. I will catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.